camp of 2024. I cannot believe it. I want to thank Councilmember Jurinsky. I see Councilmember Gardner is on as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We have no consent items. Approval of the minutes, Councilmember Jurinsky, Councilmember Gardner.
I approve.
Fine with me.
Okay. All right. Our federal legislative update, Lori.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I thought I would give a high-level update on the election, the impacts on it on Congress as well, what Congress has to do for the rest of the year, and then some priorities for next year. I'm going to do really high level because I want to keep it short and sweet because I know the state has a long update as well. But I'll be sending you all updated slide deck later this afternoon. Their nominations are constantly being made. Races are being called. So we're trying to update that document as soon as possible. So as you know, we'll have a new president, Donald Trump, on January 20th next year. As you've seen in the news, there are a number of cabinet nominations have been made, a number of appointments. I'm just going to highlight a few that impact the city. At EPA is former Congressman Lee Zeldin of New York. He is a great person to work with. One of my colleagues used to work with him in the state legislature in New York. He is great on policy. I think he needs to learn a little bit more on Western. I see Kathy Kitzman there, or to teach him a little bit more on Western conservation. But he has been a great member to work with as a member of the a former congressman from the Long Island area, has been great on EPA and making sure funding is there for municipalities. He understands the need. Department of Homeland Security is Governor Kristi Noem. At Department of Interior is North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, who I think will also be a great advocate for the city's Western water infrastructure and conservation issues. At Department of Transportation, apparently the transition team is meeting with the president-elect and Mar-a-Lago this weekend, starting later this afternoon. There are a couple of nominees, several I used to work with on the Hill. There's a great list at Transportation, so excited when that is finally announced. I'll share with Liz. And at HUD, Ben Carson or Tim Scott, for current senator from South Carolina, are rumored to be the nominees. And I raise that because both of them have been to Aurora. Secretary Carson has visited Aurora, I think, 2 or 3 times during the last administration. And Senator Tim Scott visited, I think, 3 years ago as well, and visited several of your projects. So it's great that a future HUD secretary has the knowledge and experience of working with the city of Aurora. Now there is a trifecta. The House is also going to continue to be controlled by Republicans. It's a slim majority of 218 to 209. There are 8 races still to be called. And that is a pretty slim majority because President-elect Trump has started to nominate a few congressmen and congresswomen to be nominees, so that majority could slip a little bit. I know he's been in discussions with Speaker Johnson on other members, Republican members he wants to nominate, but they're trying to have the right balance, so the House still remains in Republican control. The Senate is in control with 53-47, still a slim majority, but it is in control with Republicans. For leadership, the House has decided to keep Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana as a speaker. So a interesting transition there. As they were doing the speaker elections, one member proposed an earmark ban, and her in leadership, her vote started dwindling. And so she took it off the table. So to me, that's good news. That means that earmarks are going to continue to be in a House Republican control next year. On the Senate side, Senate Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota, who's been there for a really long time. I used to work with him when I was on the Hill. He likes to earmark. The new Appropriations Chair, Susan Collins of Maine, supports earmarks. So for sure, they will continue to allow that next year. There will be a number of new committee leadership changes, which I can share in the slide deck, but I will switch to what they need to get done this year. They need to finish the appropriations bill. Right now, we're under a continuing resolution, which is funding the federal agencies at current levels until December 20th. This weekend, the future Republican leadership and House leadership are meeting with the president to ask what he wants to do. Does he want to defer appropriation bills into next year, or he's going to just get them wrapped up this year? I'm hearing on the Hill they prefer to defer it to next year, to March, and then pass the appropriations bill then. That means our earmarks would stay in the appropriations bills versus if they do a year-long CR. It looks like Republicans on the Senate side want to wrap it up, get going, so they get the first 100 days working with the president to get his initiatives solved. So I'll keep Liz posted on that. They also need to finish the National Defense Authorization Act and a Water Resources Development Act, which is a biennial bill for Army Corps of Engineers projects. I see Kathy on the call. Kathy, I heard the bill will be on the floor in the House and the Senate the week after Thanksgiving. Is 99% done. So as soon as I see bill text, I will share that with you, since I know you're sort of monitoring one provision in there. When they come back, they have a lot to do, working on the next budget resolution, working on appropriations. But right now, their top priority is working on President Trump's previous tax cuts that have expired. So that's going to be the very first thing they do. And they're going to do it under reconciliation, which means it bypasses a filibuster. It just requires a simple majority vote in the Senate. So that way it can get passed. They're going to attach other things to this related to health care. And I also heard low-income housing tax credit, which I know is very important to the city, could be attached to this reconciliation bill as well. So they're starting to work on it now, but I'll know more in the new year. They also need to get the farm bill done next year as well. And there'll just be many other initiatives that will get done. And I'll continue to share intel as I hear what's going on next year.
Well, thank you, Lori, for that. And I really do appreciate the slide deck that you have in here. I was reading through it and it's very informative. And thank you so much for that. Just a quick question before I hand it over to my colleagues. If the former president decides to do, I've heard rumors, looking at podcasts and reading, that if he might try to do like a internal recess where he might have his appointees try to come in while everybody else is out in Congress.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, recess appointments. Yes.
I'm sorry. Is that
Exactly.
something that might proceed, or do you know any rumors about that?
So the new majority leader, John Thune, says he would support that. However, not for everyone. As you probably have seen in the news, there's some controversial members, considered controversial, that have been proposed as nominees. And so in the press, the Senator Thune has said he would prefer hearings for some nominees, but ones that are less controversial, he's fine with doing a recess appointment. And what that means is the Senate is called into recess for at least 10 days. Previously, when they didn't want to do a recess appointment, they called the session pro forma. But Thune has said he is in support of that. That means they could still hold hearings on the nominees, which in the past we've leveraged our senators' appointments on relative committees to ask questions, for example, on USDA secretary or the Department of Interior secretary, which we can continue to do. So TBD on that one.
Okay, thank you for that. I just, looking at all the things.
Yeah, you're right.
Possibility
Right.
on that. Okay. Yeah. Is there any other questions from my colleagues, Councilmember Jurinsky, Councilmember Gardner?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
No questions.
Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And Lori, I'm not sure if you're going to stay on, but if you don't, I'm going to give some comments at the end. But I just want to thank you for everything that you've done in supporting the city priorities. I've been working with you for years, but really thank you for everything and all your updates. It's really, you've done a fantastic job. So thank you so much, Lori.
And okay. I see the mayor has his
Councilmember
hand up.
Lawson.
Yes, Councilmember Jurinsky.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say the same thing Lori was trying to say. It looks like the mayor's jumped on and has his hand up.
Okay, Mayor, I'm sorry, I did not see you.
Oh, no problem. I think my question is for Getz, Congressman Getz, is Thune's, I haven't read anything about Thune's position on him.
He prefers not to do a recess appointment for that nomination, he said.
But he has said definitely no.
He has not said definitely no, but from my intel on the Hill, talking to Senate staff, there are concerns.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mayor, I know you were on, but thank you for your question. If there's no other questions, we'll go to our state legislative update. I see Peggy and Cammie. And Tatsi is not here, right? I just want to make sure, I want to acknowledge her if she is or not. It's just you two, correct?
I am not able to pull up all the
Okay.
attendees, so I'm
Okay,
not
it
quite
looks like I
sure.
just see you two,
Apologies.
so I'll let you guys go ahead and start. So
Thank
welcome.
you. Happy to start. Just to kind of piggyback, I guess, where Lori ended, in terms of congressional races in Colorado, we had 3 that were receiving national attention. Jeff Hurd in the 1 in the 3rd, Boebert filled Ken Buck's vacant seat. In the 5th congressional district, Jeff Crank beat out Dave Williams in the primary and then also won the general election down in El Paso County. Gabe Evans, who is a current legislator at the state, he's a former U.S. Army helicopter pilot and police lieutenant. He beat out the incumbent Yadira Caraveo. So interesting races at the congressional level right here in Colorado. In terms of the state legislative races, the Republicans went into this election with the idea that in the House, they were targeting 5 seats. They wanted to pick up 3 of those seats so they could bust up the Democratic supermajority. It looks like they were able to do that. One of the seats is super, super close. Representative Stephanie Vigil down in Colorado Springs, I think is only down by 7 points. Her challenger has won that seat, but there will be an automatic recount. So if those numbers hold and the Republicans are able to keep those seats down in Colorado Springs, Dan Woog was reelected up in Weld County. He's got a little bit more of a margin, I think 100 and something votes. If they're able to keep that, then they will have reached their goal for this election and frankly picked up seats for the first time in several cycles. So they're feeling pretty good with their election results. In the Senate, things have remained fairly consistent, 23-12 majority. Again, the Republicans were going in hoping to not allow the Democrats to get a supermajority, and they achieved that goal. Mark Snyder, who is a representative, ran for the Senate. He was a Democrat that picked up a seat down in Colorado Springs. Alternatively, Scott Bright was able to pick up a seat up in Adams County. So those numbers ended up the same. Part of, I think, what we're going to see before the end of the month or before the end of the year, we'll see committee leadership appointed as well as membership to committees. We should have that by the end of the year. Leadership in the House remain the same. Speaker McCluskey, Majority Leader Monica Duran, and Minority Leader Rose Puglisi. In the Senate, because Senator Spenberg was term limited, Senator James Coleman received the presidential nod from his caucus. Senator Rodriguez will remain the majority leader, and Senator Lundeen, Republican from down south, will remain the minority leader. So like I said, we'll see things start to move with committee appointments. Hopefully we'll start to see some drafts of bills as these newly elected folks, start to think quickly about what bills they're going to run. We do already have rumors of a couple new vacancy committees that will appoint 2 new members to the legislature. One, Chris Hansen, senator from Denver, has resigned and is going to lead the La Plata Electrical Co-op. And his vacancy will meet. There are a couple sitting representatives that are trying to get that seat. One representative, Steve Woodrow, is vying for the seat, along with Representative-elect Sean Camacho, who ousted Elizabeth Epps in the primary in June. And then there's a couple other folks that are running for it as well. So that'll already be a change since the election. And then Senator Kevin Van Winkle down in Douglas County, he won his congressional seats. His commissioner seats. So there will be a vacancy committee for that seat. So more changes to come. Just when you think you have something finalized, there's vacancy committees. Just
And then
kind of
Peggy,
a quick.
before you
Yeah,
start,
sorry.
I think the mayor has his hand up, so I
Oh,
want to make sure that I
apologies.
address him before you move on to the next subject. Mayor
Thanks.
So I
Kaufman?
was just concerned about there's been talk about a bill going through the legislature that would restrict municipal courts in terms of what kind of penalties that they can put on different infractions, and so it would affect our mandatory minimums on retail theft and motor vehicle theft. Do you know? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, we've heard rumors of it, have not seen a bill draft yet. Trying to track it down, and as soon as we get a bill draft, or maybe even kind of a one-pager with some talking points, we'll be sure to pass that on.
Yeah, we really want to fight that, and hopefully that we can get CML. Well, obviously, we've got a formal process for taking a position on that, and then my hope is that CML will join in with us and fight it if it does come up, but I think it will.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes, Councilmember Jurinsky.
I just want to jump in on that to kind of just piggyback off of what the mayor is talking about with the mandatory minimums. I have worked on, and it will be coming forward through the state legislature to make the retail theft a state law, sort of what happened with the auto theft. So if we can get that through, and I think we are going to have a Dem and a Republican on that one. If we can get that one through, then we don't have to worry about the mandatory minimum in Aurora on that one, at least.
And then Councilmember Jurinsky, as you're working on, I know you have some potential sponsors, but if you could keep Liz in the loop on that and what you're doing on that, that would be great. So
No problem. No problem.
Okay. All right. Mayor? Yes.
Oh, my concern is that it would permanently restrict our ability to do it, and so unless it were in state law, state statute.
Okay. Peggy, I'm going to go ahead and let you continue, or.
Perfect. Just a couple closing thoughts. As you have probably read, we're over $1 billion in the hole for our budget going into the upcoming fiscal year. And the big focus is going to be how to cover that $1 billion with the least amount of pain to, various constituency groups. The governor released his budget last week, did a presentation to the Joint Budget Committee earlier this week. The conversations are starting to happen around how to make up for that $1 billion. They're talking about freezing the reimbursement rates for Medicaid providers, change how the state counts K through 12 students, and do a slow rollout of the school finance formula that they passed last year. There's discussions about sweeping the Pinnacle reserves, and we've talked about that, it seems like, for the last 20 years. To try to address the budget gaps. So that really is going to cast a shadow on the other 700 bills that are introduced this session. I mean, if you've got any sort of fiscal note on your bill, it's not going to make it through. some of the other issues that we're likely to see, I think we will get a bit of a timeout on affordable housing land use this year. There'll probably be some more bills on affordable housing, but the big land use bills that we've seen the last couple years from the governor's office, they're really focused on implementation. So hoping we get a bit of a reprieve from those issues this year. We will have discussions about construction defects again this year to try to increase condominium building in the state. I mentioned the Pinnacle spinoff. There's going to be discussions around tax credits. So lots to come. It'll be another very, very busy year, but really, I think that budget is going to overshadow everything. And I know Kim's was going to touch on some of the interim.
And before you do that, Mayor Kaufman has another question. Mayor?
Yeah, just a quick question. We met with the governor recently, and he said something about that. Is it 350 million for law enforcement on that initiative?
Yeah, there's 350 million that passed in the ballot initiative. And I actually just got some information this morning that the sheriffs and chiefs of police met with the governor's office on it and came up with kind of some principles that they're going to consider in that legislation. Basically, the legislature will kind of determine and prioritize the issues and the funding that those dollars can go to. The governor will play, my understanding is more of a role of suggesting and providing information. But it sounds like they are starting to work on that bill. The goal is to put 50 million to agencies over the next 7 years. It can't be used to supplant budgets. 1 million will go to death benefits for families of first responders, possible bonuses for completing training, allocations based on a formula, not on a competitive grant. And
There's
then
there's not a requirement. It's over a 10-year period or something like that.
yeah, it looks like they're focusing on the next 7 years, though it may go beyond that.
And so, but you think there'll be an appropriation this year?
I don't know when it's going to go into effect, if it'll be in, I think it'll definitely be in the 2025-26 year. I'm not sure if there will be money that goes in for this year, but I'll find out.
But do you think, given the budget constraints, you think there'll be an appropriation next year? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
You bet.
Okay, before we move on to Cammie to give us her update on the committees, is there legislative committees? Is there any other questions for Peggy from my colleagues? Okay. Hi, Cammie, go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Good to see everybody. Just a quick update on the vehicle registration bill that we have been working closely on. We have had 2 meetings with the Department of Revenue, which have been very encouraging. They cannot throw support behind the bill right now, but we're in a good position on the legislation. We had a meeting earlier this week and agreed to add in the amnesty financial piece, and the department's comfortable with that. And Representative Titone and Pete worked closely on outlining what that looks like. I also have had preliminary conversations with Representative Titone on identifying, excuse me, potential sponsors for her in the House, but also the Senate. Clearly, if we can get this through as a bipartisan effort, that is the preference.
And then Cammie, before you move on with the vehicle registration, I'm gonna let the mayor speak, but just a question on that. I thought, can you just tell me why is the DMV, why can't they get behind it right now? I'm just curious. Is it because of the provision of the amnesty wasn't in there? Or
No.
they just, what was it?
Specifically, the bill right now is still in drafting.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
it hasn't been introduced, and the department will also need to circle with the governor's office too.
Okay, okay. Mayor Kaufman?
Yeah, where when it is drafted, I suspect that I'll be happy to come down to the Capitol again and meet with the governor. And all of us did last time, I think, to include let's see who was there. I'm trying to remember. Well, Pete was with us last time, and Councilmember Hancock was there. And so if we can meet with the chief of staff and governor, but yeah, they, generally departments are never going to support a bill without the support of the government. And so
Okay, I just didn't know I didn't know because I'm not in the conversation. So I was just kind of asking if there was some part of the bill that they wanted. So.
No, I think everybody's done a great job working on the bill, and I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Cammie.
And right
Is there any
now,
additional questions, Mayor, that you have? You still have your hand up.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Cammie.
Sorry. Was also just going to update on bills that we expect to see be introduced specifically in the transportation space. There are going to be several TLRC bills, increasing transportation mode choice to help reduce emissions, also local funding for vulnerable road user protections, paratransit services legislation, and then Transit Tuesdays. We have not seen a list of specific bill ideas or language. We understand that Representative Froelich and Senator Winter are contemplating maybe something along the lines of RTD reform, and also looking at an alternative transportation tax credit and fleet electrification. I have been in touch with Representative Froelich this week. She expects to start pulling together small stakeholder group meetings. I've asked her to keep us in the loop so that we can be involved in those discussions as the committee sees fit.
Mayor Kaufman, you have your hand up still. Did you have a question?
No, I'm okay. Thanks.
Okay, okay. Is there any other, do you have any other updates, Cammie, before I ask my colleagues if they have any questions? Okay, Councilmember Jurinsky, Councilmember Gardner, do you guys have any questions for Cammie before we move on?
No questions.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cammie. I really do appreciate it as well. We're going to go to our state and local ballot results, and we have Liz Rogers.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. So I'm not going to harp too much on some of the state ballot measures that have passed. I think we've seen a lot of that in the news lately. And Peggy gave a great update on one of the topics I was really going to touch on, which is the funding for law enforcement. I do think we hopefully will see some grant funding come from that directed towards our city. So we will closely be watching what happens with that. Some of the other bills or ballot measures that I want to touch on that passed and failed this year was the RTD Tabor ballot initiative that did pass. So RTD will be able to keep their funding. Notably for Adams County, they ran a ballot measure to increase taxes, and that bill failed, and as well as their bill to adjust their district attorney term limits, that bill failed as well. Arapahoe County's debrucing measure did pass, and as well as the city's own pit bull ownership measure. And then just to touch a little bit on our counties, we will have some new county commissioners. You can see all this information in the slides that were in the notes, but notably Rhonda Fields is now District 5's county commissioner.
Okay.
So happy to take any questions on those things.
Okay. Are there any questions from the mayor or my colleagues?
No questions.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Liz. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
So
Councilmember.
you're welcome. Water update. Kathy.
Good afternoon. I have no action items today, just informational only, and wanted to first thank you for everything that you did for the water department for this last year. So thank you for the state support on water conservation and permitting, wastewater and gray water. Everything went fairly well. Looking into next year for state items, we're probably going to have robust discussions about severance tax, revegetation of lands, and groundwater. So I'm anticipating those three topics to come up next year. And then on the federal side, Lori mentioned the endangered fish reauthorization should make it through under the NDAA. So we're happy about that. And then we're hearing too that there might be an omnibus on land and water. And so that's where perhaps the Drought Preparedness Act and the Water Data Improvement Act and even an Aquatic Nuisance Species Act might be rolled into that. So we're watching that before the end of the year. And then looking into next year, we're hearing that there's going to be a tax-related bill. So that's where we'll be pushing on the Water Conservation Tax Rebate Parity Act. But just really looking forward to 2025 and happy holidays, everybody.
Okay, well, thank you, Kathy. Is there any questions for Kathy before I make my final comments and kind of give everyone an opportunity to speak that would like to speak on some legislative items? And I don't hear anything. So stay on, Kathy. I have some thanks to give you as well. Is there anyone here, Chief Jewell? I see Judge Day. Is there anything that you would like to comment on or bring us up to speed on?
Nothing from police. Just looking forward to the additional grant funding coming through. So keep an eye on that to see what we can take advantage of there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chief. Hi, Judge Day. Any updates from you?
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you. Just to give you a quick update, I took the proposal of vehicle registration to the floor of our judicial conference, the statewide municipal judges conference last month. Everybody was in support of it, so I just wanted to pass that along to the committee. There was no problems or issues. Everybody was in support of that particular proposal. So members of the legislative committee for CMJ, the Municipal Judges Association, has met with potential bill sponsors or groups that will be proposing legislation related to municipal sentencing and trying to bring it in line with, or proposing to bring it in line with, state sentencing guidelines. It was clear from those meetings that Rebecca Wallace with the Freedom Fund will be running a bill and getting bill sponsors for that. There was not a lot of room for discussion. They also informed us that they will be running other bills related to what they're terming to be shoring up webcast or live streaming of municipal court proceedings. That will be coming forward, and they indicated that they will be bringing a bill to shore up, although again, we haven't seen any of the draft legislation yet. Appointment of counsel for people who are in custody. So those three are going to be for sure coming, because they've told us for sure that they're coming. I haven't seen anything on paper yet, but they were just giving us a heads up on that.
Okay, thank you, Judge Day. I really do appreciate it. Mayor Kaufman.
Yeah, Judge Day, I'm concerned about the this legislation that would quote unquote shore up our ability to do sentences at the municipal level in excess of the state sentencing guidelines. Is that what that's what they're focused on, right?
Yes, exactly. They're going to propose legislation that for whatever violations that are on the municipal books, the sentences will be the same as they are proposed within state statute. If it was either at a petty offense level, a misdemeanor 2 level, or a misdemeanor 1 level. So that's what's coming.
Wow. Okay. Thanks.
And there is a case that's before the Supreme Court out of Westminster that deals with a challenge to that specific issue under an equal protection challenge. Westminster's case was accepted by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court did look for and was open to amicus briefs being filed on that, which I believe CML has filed, and there may have been other jurisdictions that have filed an amicus brief on that as well.
Well, what is the position of the judges? Your organization on the sentencing guidelines?
I don't think from an organizational standpoint that, and I don't think that I'm in a position to comment from either the board or anybody else if they've taken a position on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that'd be tough. That'd be tough on us. But thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Well, thank you, Judge Day, and I really do appreciate it. I just, miscellaneous matters before we close out. I just want to say it has been an honor to be a chair of the Pfizer committee this year for 2024. This committee is my favorite committee. I hope that next year I could be on it in some capacity. I don't know what that is, but I do appreciate my colleagues, Councilmember Jurinsky in particular, for being at all, the meetings and being with the legislative, Councilmember Gardner, and everyone here, from our state lobbyists to our federal lobbyists, from Kathy. Thank you so much. I do want to emphasize something, and I hope that as the years I've seen through the legislative session, it just seems like the legislature is trying to challenge us more and more on home rule authority. And I think whatever we're going to do in all of these issues, from transportation to land use to courts, and that is something we're going to have to continue to battle, I think, as municipalities, because it's not a one size fit all. I really, really see that that's going to be challenging. I really appreciate everyone, Judge Day, everyone who has went down to the Capitol to support our priorities and to continue to, put up the good fight to ensure that our city is getting our needs met from the legislative level. And I know it's only getting tougher and tougher, but I appreciate the wins that we have made as well at the state level and also at the federal level. So I just want to thank everyone for this opportunity to, again, serve on this committee. And I hope to get to see you guys in 2025. I wish you happy holidays and a fantastic weekend. Councilmember Jurinsky, do you have any parting words as well? And then I'll give it to Councilmember Gardner.
I think my sentiments are the same. Thank you all so much for this year. This committee can be a lot, especially when we're meeting twice a month. Councilmember Lawson, you've done a great job, and thank you everybody for your help. And this is the first year since I've been on council that I felt like we actually had some wins and we actually made some progress. The fight, I saw the fight, everybody who was going down to the Capitol. I think that Councilmember Lawson and I on this committee have done some good work this year, and I feel hopeful. I felt the wins this year. So thank you all for everything that you do.
Yeah. Councilmember Gardner, do you have any parting words to anybody on the committee before we head out?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Is there anybody else before this is our final meeting, and we'll depart. Okay. Well, thank you everybody, and hopefully we'll see each other next year, and have a great weekend, and again, happy holidays. Bye everybody.
Happy holidays.
Thank you,
Bye.
Councilmember Lawson.